What's going on, everybody? My name is Bryan Tann, and this is another edition of Tann Talks. What's going on, everybody? My name is Bryan Tann. I am your host of this edition of Tann Talks, where we are talking The Left of Us, episode 3, long ago. For those that, I'm sorry, long time. Wow. I totally blew that. What's funny is that the one time that I decided, yeah, we're just going to do this live, and I automatically flub it. So there you go. Yay. My name is Bryan Tann. I am the co-host of the Plotaholics podcast, and joining me as she has the last couple of weeks while we talk The Last of Us, Melinda D. Melinda, how you doing?
Good. It's freezing here in Texas, just as a side note.
Wait. Now, the Texas idea of freezing and East Coast idea of freezing are two completely different things.
Yes, but let me qualify this with, I was born and raised on Long Island up in New York. So when I say it's freezing down here, this isn't a Texan, oh my gosh, it's 65, it's freezing. It is not supposed to break 34 today.
Oh, so it's actually warmer here than it is there.
And we're supposed to get freezing rain. And I was out yesterday with my daughter doing Girl Scout cookies in our neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
We left the house, it was 70 degrees.
Okay.
In 3 hours, by the time we got home, it was 45.
Wow. That's a little
So we were walking around in t-shirts, and halfway through I had to call my husband and said, I'm dropping a pin. Please come drop us off jackets because weren't prepared for it.
Wow. Yeah. That is a little bit of a dramatic temperatural shift there. A barometric badness, as it
Yeah, so I'm not just being a baby about it. It was legitimately cold.
All right, fair enough. Well, let's talk about something that was a little bit warmer. This week's episode of The Last of Us, which saw special guests Nick Offerman and what was his name? Murray. I can't remember his last name off the top of my head. Let me look. Murray Bartlett. Wow, I'm just totally flubbing it today. This is horrible. So Nick Offerman and Murray Bartlett were our lead characters this week. So what we saw a little bit this week because I was worried. I'm like, why aren't we having the flashback? But this whole episode was one big flashback. And, so we're only in 2023 for like the last about 10, 15 minutes. And you said, you sent this last night. You were like, this is going to be a fun discussion today.
Yeah.
So real quick, just right off the top of your head, what did you take from this episode?
Man, this is one of the most heartwarming, genuine stories that you see come out of apocalypse fiction.
Oh, I agree.
You don't get to see generally speaking, you don't get to see the development of relationships. And I mean, if I'm being perfectly blunt, you'd never get to see LGBTQ plus relationships. They're usually not shown, especially underrepresented in apocalyptic, fiction. So I thought this was going to go a different way because I hadn't seen the movie, the game, so I didn't know Bill and Frank.
Well, Frank is new, even but Bill. We only meet Bill in the games. So
right,
and you're right.
I loved it.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, even in The Walking Dead, all we had was Aaron. We had Aaron, and even Jesus was sort of skimmed over in The Walking Dead.
Yes, and they pulled the trope they do in everything. This is one of my big beefs with how Supernatural ended was, you introduce these gay characters and then you kill them off almost immediately.
Yeah, we even saw that in Buffy the Vampire Slayer because we had Willow and Tara, and then, bam, spoiler alert from 20 years ago, Tara dies.
Right, and Aaron's partner died, and then, you get to the end of Supernatural, here comes another spoiler alert, Cass finally tells Dean he loves him, and then he dies.
Yes.
It's like, okay, let's kill the gays, and that's super not cool. And I really appreciated that in this episode, yes, inevitably that happens, but it didn't happen the way you thought it was going to happen.
Right. They got
to ride off into the sunset, and it was love
on their own terms.
I loved it. It was it was fantastic.
And the one thing that I truly appreciate in this episode as well, to sort of piggyback off that point, is that we saw very little violence in this. There was not a lot of violence in this. You know, we see we start off with, and spoiler alert, you know, it should already be in the description if you're not watching us live, and from what I can tell, you're not, and that's cool. So but yeah, spoiler alert. So we see the aftermath of the loss of Tess. It's still weighing on Joel, to the point where even when Ellie tries to, you know, break the ice, she goes, you know, about Tess, you don't talk to me about Tess. She was like, you know, and she told him flat out, don't blame me for something I had no control over.
Yeah.
And good on her for standing up for herself like that. Because number one, Ellie's a spitfire. She is not going to take any of Joel's shit. And she let us know what time it was right there. And kudos to her on that, because, you know, this is a kid who, and I gotta give Bella Ramsey all the love in this, because she does such a good job at portraying this tough girl.
Yes.
Also experiencing things that she's never experienced before. You know, because she even says, I've never been in the woods. And then when they go to, you know, Joel and Tess's sort of safe house, and she sees Mortal Kombat, she's marking out for it. And it's like, you know, that is so awesome, because I'm pretty sure that's how, like if our kids saw a Mortal Kombat actually stand-up video game, they'd be like, oh my God, my mom and my dad have told me about this. Oh, relic of a forgotten era.
The first time I took my kids to an arcade, my son, he's a teenager now, he was like, Mom, I've played this game on my Xbox. I can kick your butt. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So here we are on the arcade cabinet. And he's like, holy crap, Mom. I said, babe, I grew up on this.
Yes.
On the arcade machine. This whole button you're not used to that. You're used to this. I grew up like this.
It's a totally different,
different game.
It's totally different for y'all youngins. And I'm talking y'all that are like 20, 21, that think you're real gamers. I don't want to be that old guy, but until you can rock ass on a cabinet, you're not rocking ass. I'm sorry, you're just not. You're just lightly massaging booty. Okay, it's a gentle.
Accurate.
Yes, it's a gentle kind of honk on the booty cheeks right there. So then we. But the one thing that I really appreciated, though, is that we start to see Joel and the begrudging affection that he has for Ellie. Or maybe it's the fact because she is really, really spunky and spitfiery like Sarah was. But, you know, he's like, hey, let's go this way. Oh, why? Is there anything that's going to hurt me? Well, no. Well, too bad. That's the way I'm going. He's like, okay.
Anything bad in there? Just you. And I'm like, yes, running joke. We're going to keep that up.
I am all for it. And I love how she just goes, yeah, that's
okay.
Old. But, and when she sees the ditch, and she's just like frozen. And I love how he's explaining to her, like his teaching her about what the world was like is also our, you know, it's what's teaching us as well, because she's like, how did this happen? You know, was it monkeys? I bet it was monkeys. And he goes, no, it's in the food. And well, people started getting sick. That was on a Wednesday. By Monday, the world was over. And it's like,
it gave us our timeline. Like Thursday morning, people ate. Thursday night, people were sick. Monday, society gone. It's like, holy crap, that's 72 hours.
Yeah. And it's funny how that happens too. The fact that you give society 72 hours to fall apart, I'd say 24.
Well, I mean, I appreciate the subtle dig too in the, you know, you see these things like that'll never happen here, right? That's just not how it works. That'll never happen here. Like, look at how important your food source was. That's what this was. This wasn't an asteroid you had no control over. It was what you put in your body.
Right.
that if you're not paying attention to it or you're not aware of it. Now, in this case, it's not like they're like radioactive flour, use this for bread,
Right. No,
but if
it
you don't,
was it was
and the
just something in the
interconnectivity.
food.
Yeah. And he's like, it all came from different, like one company, Nabisco or whatever, random.
It was kind
It's sold all over the world. So
it
it's not
reminded me a
hey,
lot
it
of
happens,
it reminded me of, and this is, and tell me if you got this sort of feeling. It reminded me of Tim Burton's Batman, where it was all the different chemical. It wasn't just one chemical or one thing. It was a combination of things that the Joker poisoned that got the sort of the Joker effect. And that sort of
Yeah.
sounds like this is what happened. It was a combination of these things that were eaten. So it's like if you're the person that has to drink Code Red Mountain Dew with a burger from McDonald's and some potato chips, there you go. It's just
Yep.
speculating. And then and it kind of sounds like it had to be in this particular order, in a certain order. But then still certain people got sick, certain people didn't. Which
See, I got it more as like a cross contamination thing. Like if this plant is handling your flour, but they're also they're making the flour, they make the pancake mix there, they make white bread there, and they make Cheerios there.
right.
Even if just the flour is contaminated, because you get cross contamination, now it's in all of the other things.
And that makes perfect sense. And it goes to show
and then if
why
you're shipping these globally,
it's just going everywhere. Which is also why if you work in these places, please make sure you clean up. Please.
Wash your damn hands.
Seriously, wash your after you wash your ass, wash your hands, and then clean down the machines, man.
Yes.
Don't get stingy with the cleaning products. I don't care what your supervisor says.
And I'll stick this plug in there too. I'm not. This isn't the podcast for that. I'm not going to lecture you on what you're eating, but just be aware of what you're putting into your mouth.
Mm-hmm. I just had this conversation earlier today, and they're like, "Well, how did you lose all of your weight? 90% of it's in the kitchen. You got to change what you're putting in your body." And here's a clear case of it right here, because the thing is, the only zombie apocalypse anything that I recall seeing that it dealt with food, that movie, Zombies, where it was like the stuff that they put into like ice cream, and that's why those people got infected. You weren't seeing this stuff in food and other stuff. It was either, like you said, it was either a meteor or it's some sort of gas, or we don't know where it's coming from.
Right. And a lot of times I think they deliberately don't tell you where it's coming from, because then it's open-ended. It could be anything, right? Like I know with Walking Dead, Kirkman made a big point initially, for the first however many seasons, he didn't want to say in the comics or in the show what caused it, because that distracts from the story they're telling. And then people like me that have that kind of brain that want to know, where did it come from? How did this? Well, logically, this wouldn't have survived impact or whatever.
Right.
You focus on that and you focus less on the story. But the way they gave us that information this time, it wasn't subtle. I mean, you knew where he was getting at, but you're like, I could totally see that happening. And it was just,
and that's what makes this a lot scarier.
It was so, like with the fungus, it's so insidious. So you're like, not what you're looking for.
But it's something that could actually happen. It's something that could truly happen. So we see the boneyard.
That was hard. That was rough. That's when I texted you. When I said, we're going to have fun with this tomorrow. When I saw those bones and then they did the flashback.
Oh, that hit me.
Right after that scene, I'm like, we need to chat.
Oh, absolutely. And so we see Fenrir is already rounding up people in this area. And we see that Bill is in his sub basement watching everything.
Well, Bill, I think it was telling, and I wanted to bring this up, is when Joel is talking to Ellie about it. Mm-hmm. And she says, but they weren't even sick. And he said, they told you they were taking you to the QZ if there was room.
Right.
Right. And man, if that wasn't one of the biggest callbacks to World War II Nazi Germany, we're taking you somewhere better, but we're really not.
Right.
And people just, like they do, they just, the government's here to save me. Let me get on the truck.
Right. And meanwhile.
Meanwhile.
And then she's like, well, why wouldn't they just leave them be? Because dead people don't get infected.
Mm-hmm.
That just
And they
lets
don't
you know,
use resources.
right. And that just lets you know how cold and how cruel this world is.
Yeah,
And how
it's
this and
numbers.
yeah, and I mean, I'm sorry, man. Human nature can be so beautiful and so terrifying all at the same time. So we saw the evil
Mm-hmm.
side of human nature, and then we get to the beauty of it. So we see Bill, and he's hiding out. Um, and you get this idea that Bill is this the way he looks at the start of this is that he's some and I don't want to be inflammatory when I say it, but he looks like one of the psycho survivalists that are
Yeah,
these super conspiracy theorists. I almost put a title on it, but I've refrained. I'm proud of
the
myself.
survivalist.
Yeah, he's a survivalist. No other political anythings at all that start with letters. He's a survivalist. And he's watching everything. And as soon as they're gone, he gets right to work. And I thought it was really cool how he did it. First thing he did, he went to the neighbor's house. He started stocking up. He gutted the boat so he would have extra hauling space. Goes to Home Depot, walls off his neighborhood with the
Yeah.
fences, and he sets up all of these traps and everything. And I'm sorry, that was really, really cool. Like,
So
because everyone thinks
yes,
that
no,
that's what they would do. Everyone thinks that that's what they would do.
time to party. And even my husband was watching with me. He's like, "Man, this guy gets around." I was like, "That's that mentality. Is how to get into the natural gas. Like, if I would love to say I would know what to do, and there's stuff I would know how to do, but I wouldn't know how to turn the natural gas line back on from the
I
from the
definitely wouldn't.
station. I could probably turn it on if it was shut off at my street, but I could
Right.
not go to the plant half a mile from here and go, oh, well, let me just turn this. No, I'd blow up the town. Like, I wouldn't know what to do.
I would
He did. I
definitely.
was impressed.
I would definitely cause like a massive explosion and would not survive like at all. So kudos to Bill for knowing exactly what to do and how to get it done. And he did, man. He had he had his ducks in a row. He had his perimeter. He had all of this stuff set up, good to go. And I don't know what the hell my dog is doing, but she's doing something she ain't supposed to be doing.
So the other
So
thing I noticed, I don't know if you noticed it, and it's the search and rescue in me that picked up on it. On the doors, they were spray painting the X's.
yeah, I noticed that as well. Like they're showing where they've been.
Well,
Like
so
this has already been
it's a
searched.
yeah, well, it's a FEMA thing, and it's made for, and you see it a lot. They actually use that. That wasn't just invented for the show, but
Right.
it's used
Yeah.
a lot in disaster areas. And what they do is they put the X, and then each quadrant has information so that
Mm-hmm.
other search and rescue teams or recovery teams will know immediately by looking at the door what
I
like
thought that
it's an
that
easy way to
was
pass information. So generally speaking, at the top you have the date and the time is always in a 24-hour manner. I went
hmm
back and I rewound it and I watched so I could see what they put in each spot.
it's been so long since I've done any of my FEMA training that is right. I was like, hey,
Yeah,
this looks familiar. Why does this look familiar? It's been almost 20 years since I've done any of my FEMA training, so it's been a while.
I just did a handful of them. And this wasn't in them. I just happen to know this one.
Okay.
On the left-hand side is who's doing the searching. And
hmm
the bottom is the information, how many dead, how many alive, how many survivors, are there corpses. On the right-hand side is any hazard information. So
Right.
is there a leak or what supplies are found? This house has food and water. This house has whatever. And then if they put a big box around it, then that is a hazardous building. So it doesn't matter what's inside. It's a
hmm
major hazard. Don't enter.
Right. Nice. Look
That
at
was
you. Look
I
at you
nerded
with
out
the
on that.
intel. Look at that. Like I said, that stuff looked familiar to me, but it's been so long since I've had to do it or thought about it that I was just like, this looks familiar. Where did I see this before? Oh well.
I have a little cheat card. I keep it with my search and rescue gear, just in case I ever
Nice.
have to come across it at a hurricane or whatever. I haven't in person. I just know that this way I'm not like, oh crap, what does this mean? So I rewound the episode, got my little card out, took notes.
Nice. So Bill is getting everything situated. He's got it all set up. He's living comfortably. He's got a chicken coops. He's got everything set up for his game. He's good. And then he gets alerted. He goes to the pit. There's Frank. Now Frank is not in the games. Frank is not even. Frank is kind of.
I think he's mentioned, but he's already dead by the time they meet
Yes,
Bill.
Frank is already dead. Yeah, Frank has already died. And so, but so Bill meets Frank, and at first, and this is what I really, really appreciated. I've always hated in television and shows of the past, especially when I watch them back now, how they sort of put the stereotypes on LGBTQ plus characters. The males speak effeminately, or they
Or they're
walk
alpha male.
effeminate, or they're super overly alpha male, or the women are overly butch or whatever. This Bill is just a survivalist guy. Frank is just a dude. And then when they go to dinner, and what I really like is that Bill, for who has been alone for all of this time, he's being so cautious, but he's so happy to see someone else that he's willing to go against his nature and allow him to stay, and allow Frank to stay and share food, all this, that, and the other. And he goes, "Oh, before I go," and he starts playing the Linda Ronstadt. And I love how Bill's like, "Stop, please stop," and then goes and plays it, and he's singing it, and then him and Frank have this moment of connection.
Yep.
And it was so beautiful,
genuine,
very genuine. And then he's just like, who's the woman? There isn't one. And they share that moment of like tenderness, and then go take a shower. Which I think is hilarious, because it's like, look, man, we gonna smash, but you gotta get cleaned up, bro.
Well, even just before, when he's like, "Can I just have 5 more minutes in the shower?" And I'm like, I feel like I have felt that when I've been away at like camp, and you come home, you're like, I just want to stand in the hot water for the rest of my life.
Right. It's that feeling of not only wanting to get clean, but, and I'd say this every time I have a discussion with someone, bath versus shower. There's just something about a shower that is just so cleansing, where a bath, I kind of feel like I'm a stew.
Yeah, Melinda soup.
Yeah. And it's like, and I'm just sitting in my own ick.
Yep. And then I have to get out and shower when I'm done.
Right. Because I never feel like I'm clean in a bath.
Never. Yep. I'm so glad I'm not the only one.
No, I feel so dirt. Like, it's like there's times where a bath is warranted. It's absolutely warranted. But after that bath, I just want to stand up and let the hot water hit me and just wash it all off.
100%.
And I really love how Frank is so patient and understanding, where, Bill's like, he basically said, "I've never done this before." And he goes, "Then we'll be, what we're going to do, the basic, we'll be gentle, blah, blah, blah. But," and I love how he put the "but" in there. "I'm not a whore."
Oh my God, I love that statement.
I don't know why, but I could see you saying that to somebody.
So funny story. That happened. And I'm watching it with my husband, and I looked over to him, and I'm like, he's like, "That's something you would say." I was like, yeah, kind of is.
It really is. Like, as soon as I heard that, I said, that's a Melinda thing to say. Because me, I wouldn't even bother. I'm like, look, man, you can think I'm a hoe if you want. Hey, in some instances, I might be a hoe for certain things. You never know. I don't know. I mean, I kind of live by the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase idea of everyone's got a price.
Yeah.
I just don't know what my price is. But
I remember saying to him, I said, "They move really fast." And he goes, "Remember, it's the apocalypse."
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I get that. You're just desperate for human connection and, point, human touch. That's, not going to eat you. But it didn't feel like, even from the beginning when they were sharing a meal and he poured the wine, like, it did not feel like, even before we knew, it didn't feel like it was a random hookup. Like, at no point did that seem like I, not knowing anything about Bill and Frank, I never assumed Frank was going to leave. Like, that interaction from the get-go seemed so genuine, so sincere, that it wasn't, "Oh, well, we're just going to hook up because it's the apocalypse and I miss people."
Right. Well, I'll tell you the truth, and this is what I really, really appreciated, is that I didn't even know that there was a connection like that. I thought it was just, I don't know why, it didn't just hit me. To me, it was just, there are these two badass survivors that live together. It didn't click to me that there was an intimate relationship until I think when I started to realize it was when he said, "Who's the woman?" And he said there wasn't one. And I'll tell you what, during the Arrowverse, I really felt that the LGBTQ plus relationships were very, very forced in the Arrowverse. That was one of my main issues with the Arrowverse, was that the same sex or the LGBTQ plus relationships felt forced to me in the earlier seasons, to the point that even when they came up later, that stigma was still in my head. But this was just so natural and so genuine, and it was so wonderful. But I love the humor of, but I'm not a whore, I'm not doing this for lunch, blah blah blah. And then we get the fast forward, and I love that argument. Like, it was so funny. And he goes, "We don't have any friends." "Well, I've been talking to a very nice lady on the radio." "You've what?" It was so great. And then
I'm gonna paint the door and this store. And my husband just looked at me and I went, "What?" He goes, "All right, I will give you this." He goes, "You are 99% Bill, but
there's that little bit of Frank that's you.
Here's Frank, and it's you." I was like, "Yeah, a little bit." Oh,
so you yell at Ron about painting stuff?
No, but I would be the one that would be like when everything happened with COVID, right? And we didn't know what was going to happen. I was very much the one that's like, okay, well, we got to have food. We got to make sure we can, sanitize water if we need to. Like, I have bug out bags for each and all my kids. I'm not crazy. I'm going to preface, I should say that first. I'm not a crazy person, right? But I'm prepared. I grew up in a first responder family.
Right.
So always just being able to handle a situation is something that was ingrained on me from teeny tiny. Right? So I would be Bill. I don't want to share my resources. I have to protect my family and, my whatever. But I'm also equal much parts Frank, where I have games packed away. I had, candy bars and chocolate for morale, so that, well, I want to paint and I want to fix up these 3 stores because it makes my mental health feel better. And that's important too.
Right. And you figure too, that was 3 years, the fast forwards are in 3 to 5 year increments.
Yeah.
So, we see, so they've been living just the 2 of them for 3 years before, Tess and Joel even find out about them. And I love how now we find out the radio station stuff. Why the 80s were assigned for danger. And I really love how, Tess and Frank are just so excited to meet each other and blah, blah, blah. And then you have Bill and Joel just mean mugging. Yep. He goes, "Yep, I get it. Blah, blah, blah. Now get that gun out of my face."
It was very Han and Greedo, right? They both have blasters pointed at each other.
It really was. It really was. But I love it. And I love how Bill was just like, "We don't need you, blah, blah, blah." And he goes, "Yeah, your fence is going to go eventually. I can get you this. That'll fix that, blah, blah, blah." And Bill's like, "Son of a bitch is right. Damn it.
Raiders are going to come." And he's like, "We'll be fine." And then guess what? The Raiders showed up.
Raiders showed up. Yes, they did. And what's great is that, and this is where I'm Bill. Because Sharon, and I'm sure you've heard Sharon tell the story about the first time I took her to karaoke. Where these
I don't know that I've heard this one.
All right, so the first time we went to karaoke, and of course I was still way overweight. I was nowhere near the specimen that I am today. But so we're sitting there at the table. We got our drinks. I'm introducing her to all my friends and blah blah blah. There was a guy starting a fight with another dude. Now this one guy, he was a regular at the bar. Special needs guy. He had a head injury in a car accident. So, he was a special needs guy. He was good friends of the owner. And this one guy they were getting into it near the pool table. Well, where Sharon was sitting, if they would have started to get physical, she would have gotten hit. And the way she tells it, she didn't even have a chance to blink. As soon as I saw trouble, I was up and I was between her and danger. Frank wakes up. Bill is already gone to deal with the threat. And At that moment, I was Bill because there's no way I would have been able to turn on the natural gas. I am nowhere near as clever as Bill. I'm just going to be totally honest. Me, if in this situation, I'm not saying that I'm dumb, but I'd probably be best suited as an enforcer. I'm best suited to be the muscle. You know, I
Where
can
have I
do.
heard that?
I mean, I can do the thinking. I can do thinking, but thinking the way that Bill did it, that is not my strong suit. My strong suit is like if you're the boss, I'm the guy that stands there and probably is going to try to fight someone on your behalf. So Bill's up there and he's shooting at these raiders, and then he gets shot, and I'm like, oh no, I forgot
That's
about the
what Ron
games for a
said.
minute.
He's like, oh man.
And I forgot about the games at that point. And that's one thing that I really love about this episode is that this episode made you forget the game. You're watching this story.
Well, this happens after the strawberry thing, right?
No, the gunshot happened before the strawberries.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it did. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I might be wrong. Chances are I'm wrong. But I want to say that the strawberry part happened after this, but it might have happened before.
I just know Bill made a comment, and I'm trying to place it in my, because I wanted to talk about that, and then the rest of the episode. But I'm trying to place the timeline in my head when he makes that, if it's before or after the Raiders.
You know what? You know what? No, it happened after that because Frank took him for a jog, and he's like, oh, I can't jog anymore. So the gunshot happened after, because afterward we saw Frank debilitated.
Yes.
And Bill taking care of him.
Right. And Bill makes that comment when they were in the strawberry patch. And that's why I didn't think Bill made it when he got shot by the Raiders, is he says he apologizes that he's aging faster.
Yes.
And then Frank says, but that means we're still here.
Right.
And then the next scene he gets shot, and I was like, oh my gosh, what just happened?
And I felt a punch in the stomach. I felt a punch in the stomach when he got shot. And then we see years later, now Frank, and I believe it was, I think it was probably ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease.
Yeah, so Ron, I wonder, we were trying to figure it out, and according to the official podcast on HBO, they talked to, I think it was the EP, and they made it non-specific on purpose, but it was a degenerative, either MS or ALS, that kind of, it's somewhere in that family.
Yeah. And, you see Bill is taking care of him, and Frank decides, today is my last day. He's had enough, and I get it.
Yep.
Because, I'm sorry, medication is so hard to come by.
Yeah.
And so they
it's only going to get worse.
Right. And I understand not wanting to live that way. I totally get it.
Yep.
And Frank decides, he's gonna have his last perfect day. And Bill goes through it. But then Frank notices something's off, and Bill just kills his wine.
Wine, yeah.
And he's like...
Well, did you notice it was the exact same meal and the exact same wine?
Their first meal and first wine, yeah.
I feel so hard when I saw that.
I almost cried. I mean, this whole episode had me almost in tears. Like, I seriously want to go back and watch Parks and Rec just so I can see more of Nick Offerman, because he is so good. And, Frank goes... How much did you put in the bottle? Enough to kill a horse. It's like, God damn, that was very specific.
Yep.
But
and then extra for you.
Yeah, and then extra. And it's like, all right, I get it. But, I totally get it, because at this point, it's not like, well, I'll just find someone, I'll mourn you, but life has to keep on going. No, right. You've been on borrowed time for 20 years, and you've had your own little utopia of joy.
Yep.
And I think that Frank realized that, Bill realized before Frank how alone he truly was, and that the idea of facing life now as an old man in the apocalypse,
yep,
he was not ready to step back. So, I understand. And I'm so glad that they got to have that.
Yep. They had to do it on their terms, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, and I love it. Frank goes, well, this isn't what I wanted, but Okay.
I should be so mad at you right now, but
Yeah.
it's like super romantic. And I was like, oh, yes, I would say the same thing.
Yeah. Well, see, what I'm really glad is that he said this isn't like some play where it's, it's different. And it really was. Because, I mean, I'm sorry, you figure Bill and Frank at this point have got to be in their 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah, more likely than not in their late 50s into their 60s. Which means that your time is already short in this new world.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
and the terrifying thing of the ALS and the MS is your brain is still there. You're still you, but your body just doesn't work anymore, and it just gets harder and harder and harder. And I can see Frank not wanting to, like, he loves Bill that much that he doesn't want that to be a thing. So while I still
why
have
would
the
I want
ability
that
to do this,
right? I want us to have our last good day. Yeah, because I mean, I've told Sharon that if something were to happen to me and I would be, completely paralyzed, like from the neck down, don't resuscitate, because I don't want that to be your last memory of me. I want to stay around long enough to say goodbye to those that I love. And then, if I had that choice, if it was a fact where, well, we can wake them up to say goodbye, but it's like, no, I don't want that. And you feel for Joel, because now Joel and Ellie get there, and it's been, when you look at the decomposition of the food, it's been a couple of months. Matter of fact, is I believe at this point it's October.
See, and that's where I couldn't tell, because earlier when Frank said he needed to go to Boston at the very beginning of the episode, Bill points in the direction and says, you'll get there by tonight if you walk fast. So they weren't that far outside of Boston.
Yeah, they were only about 10 to 15 miles away.
Right. So I had a really hard time judging the time change, because we heard the 80s on a loop. So I don't know that it's necessarily been months or just a couple of weeks.
It's been a couple. Well, remember, he told Ellie at the end that they had to put in a particular code. Otherwise, it would just loop.
Go on loop.
So that's what they heard.
The 80s.
Yeah. So I think that
how
it
long
was just
had that
loop.
been?
Honestly, I'm probably willing to say it's been about maybe a month or so, because you figure, I think it's been at minimum a month, coming up on 2. I think.
I'm Googling it because I don't know. It was bothering me because I couldn't figure it out.
I'm probably going to watch it again, honestly, because actually I'm probably going to rewatch the series once the season is over. I'm going to rewatch it again.
Yes.
But I'm guessing it's probably been about a month, give or take. And he goes to the bedroom, the door is locked, Ellie finds the note, and you can see Joel is trying so hard to keep it together because he lost his daughter. His brother becomes essentially a fanatic and then disappears. And then Tess dies. And now he's saddled with this girl. And then his only friend, who, they didn't really like each other, but they respected each other. So, they're friends. They're dead.
Right.
Joel has had enough. And he's, trying to keep it together because Ellie is right there. But then he has to take a moment, but then, he gets them the truck that they need, and he tells Ellie, you know what? All right, I'm going to get you to where you need to go. But here's the rules. And Ellie is like, she's on board with it, which is really, really cool. Now we finally get to see this relationship fully begin.
And Ellie took Frank's gun, too.
Yes, she did. He would not let her. I'm
curious how that conversation is going to go when he finds that she has something.
Yeah, because he keeps telling her no guns, no guns. And I get why. I totally get why. It's not that he doesn't trust her. It's the fact that he's still dealing with that survivor's guilt with Sarah.
Yeah.
So, all in all, this was an episode that I did not expect, but I love it so, so very much. But I don't want to get. I want to get into the review of it and everything as well. So let's get Bartender Smiley here so we can give our review and wrap it up.
The Plotaholics. rating system for the movies, it's a pretty simple system. Basically, they rate movies based on how many shots it takes to get through them. So if you got a good movie and you get through it all the way sober, then it takes 0 shots to get through the movie. And then if you got a really bad movie, then it could take up to 5 shots to get through the whole thing. I think you can try to figure out the middle part yourself. So, what can I get you?
All right, Melinda D, episode 3 of The Last of Us. Long time. Give us your rating. You head us off. Hit us up first.
This was a very strong 0-shot episode for me. If I was gonna give it shots, it's because I couldn't handle my own emotions getting through it. But that's my problem, not the episode. This was a really strong episode, and it did a lot that we don't get in this kind of storytelling. So 0 shots, because I didn't need. The storytelling was fantastic. The imagery was fantastic. The story was great. There was nothing in it that I went, oh, that's kind of itchy or cringy, or no. It was fantastic from open to close.
I agree. The only thing that really scares me is, can they maintain this for the entire series, for this entire season? It's definitely a 0-shot rating for me. Nick Offerman was just wow. Like, literally wow. And I have to give credit as well. Of course, now Miss Odette is trying to, she wants to be seen on camera as well. But Nick Offerman and Murray Bartlett, I feel like, have given, like, this is one of the screen pairings for this year. You know, this is an all-time screen pairing for me. The Bill Frank relationship is just so beautiful. I'm so glad to see an LGBTQ plus couple really get some time to shine in this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, I think it says so much about the storytelling that they weren't afraid to go here, because anytime you adapt one media to another, you're going to have diehards that really, like, if there's anything different or whatever, they destroy it. And kudos to the writing team, and even to Naughty Dog as well, for this portrayal. And Nick Offerman and Murray Bartlett really just did amazing on this. This is definitely a 0-shot. But I'm kind of scared of this 0-shot because, like I said, can this continue? Because, you know, you look at some of the better shows over the last 5 years. The Mandalorian was really, really good in that first season. The second season was still pretty good. But then you got Book of Boba Fett, which was garbage, which does not...
We're going to have a conversation about that. I just watched it. That's going to be a separate conversation.
Yeah, that's a separate conversation for sure. But it's like, but see, Book of Boba Fett now does not have me excited for Mandalorian season 3. It's so hard for certain shows to really continue on this high. Because, I mean, even The Walking Dead, the first season of The Walking Dead, brilliant. Season 2, equally as brilliant. But as we move on, you start to see where things start to shift a little bit. Where they started to do things where it's not so much that it was bad, but it did not continue with the same quality as those first episodes, those first seasons.
Yeah.
So what worries me is like this. If this is the best that we're going to get here on out, I'm glad it was this episode.
No, I agree. I think some of that has to do with source material, right? Like, Game of Thrones was great, strong, great, and then they ran out of source material, and then it went off the rails. And
let's make sure we have a Starbucks cup in there.
Yeah, I think Walking Dead had a very similar, like, it was very faithful to the source material, and then it started to stray, and there were some of it that they took, even in later seasons, shot for shot, panel for panel, from the source material, but they still kind of did their own thing. Like, Daryl is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Daryl was Tyrese. Yeah, Tyrese was Daryl.
Right. And then, you know, Sophia, they killed her off in season 2. She survives to the end in the show. So, or in the comics. So I think I watched the clip at the end of the episode. I don't know if you saw it, where they're talking with the directors and the EPs and the writers. And they talked about just this, is how faithful to the source material do they stay. And he said that when they look at what they have planned for the episode versus how it is in the game, if it makes the story better, they shot it and went for it, even if it goes a little off, like this did with Bill and Frank. Not exactly, right? But it enhanced the story. And
Right.
if it took away from the story, then we cut it out of the script and did something else entirely. So it sounds like it's conscious of them, and they're not just going, oh, well, it's our revisioning of what happened. No,
Right.
is this going to enhance what is known and loved by the community? Then let's go for it and take a risk. But if we know it's not going to do that, then we're not going to bother.
Right. And I'll tell you what, the show is really making me want to go back to the game, because I don't want to ignore the emotion, because that emotion, it's so raw, but you really, 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 I feel that if any media, video game, television show, whatever, if it can elicit that sort of raw emotion, then they're doing something right, and it deserves to be visited and revisited and revisited. All right, so with that being said, this is definitely a zero shot. We got through this completely and utterly stone cold Steve Austin sober. Wow, that's an oxymoron if I've ever heard one before. So next week, it's going to be episode 4, which they have titled Please Hold My Hand. And if this is the episode where we get to Pittsburgh, I'm excited for it, because that's my favorite part of the game. Is when
I saw the clip, the up next kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it looks like a wild ride, so I'm excited to see where that goes. Again, not having played the game, I don't know what's up, but
it's going to be intense for sure. And make sure you guys pay attention. You make sure you're following us here, not just on your up on here on YouTube, but tomorrow are the latest episode of the Plotaholics podcast, where we are going to finish off our showcase of films of 2022, where Shane Wilson and I are going to be talking Everything Everywhere All at Once. I can't wait for that, because I've heard about this movie, but I have not seen it yet.
That's one with Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah. Sharon actually made me promise to watch that movie, because she hasn't watched a movie for the Plotaholics in a while. So we're actually going to put Buffy the Vampire Slayer on hold to watch Everything Everywhere All at Once. So that's going to be awesome. So make sure you guys check in with us next week, next Monday, where Melinda and I are going to be talking The Last of Us, episode 4. Tuesdays, new episodes of the Plotaholics podcast are going to be dropping. But hey, until then, enjoy what you take in. I don't know. I really want to have like a signing off phrase, but I don't have one. So in peace, love, and soul just does not seem like it's going to really fit for this. Besides, I think Don Cornelius might come back and take me out for that. So I'm just going to say we'll see you next week.